Let's now talk about modulation in Saturn 2. Now, typically audio effect processors don't have modulation options, but here in Saturn we have synthesizer-style modulation sources like LFOs, envelope generators, and even envelope followers. So let's make use of this. First, let's have a listen to the dry signal that I'm using this time. So some pretty amateur level guitar playing here. Let's turn it on. For the algorithm, I'm going to choose one of these amp options. Let's try this American Tweed amp. And as we know, we can split the audio into multiple bands using the same American Tweed amp, and we get a little bit more transparent result. I'm going to swap this one out to something else. Let's try this warm transformer. Alright, so let's add some modulation. I'll click the Add Modulation option here, and let's load in an X LFO. So now this LFO can be assigned to any parameter. So if I click over here, I can drag it to the drive control here, and you can see the modulation happening. We can adjust the modulation depth, we can invert it, pretty much identical to everything when it comes to modulation on Twin. Let's have a listen to this. Let's make this LFO a bit faster. Increase the depth here a bit. We can even solo this to hear what's happening just in this band. We add some feedback as well. Alright, so that's fun. Let's go into another band here, add another modulator. Let's use an envelope follower. And I'm going to assign this to the crossover point. So that's pretty cool. We can even modulate the crossover. Let's flip that the other way around. I'll change this to a 48 dB per octave slope. Same for this one. Let's add an envelope generator. Now typically envelope generators need a gate signal. Over here you can choose what will trigger this envelope. So you can feed it MIDI, but you can also feed it the audio signal. And interestingly, we can get a sidechain signal or even the individual bands. So activity on a particular band can trigger this envelope and we can use this to modulate something. So let's go to the highest band here. I'm going to change this to something more drastic. Let's go with old tape here. Let's solo this. Let's pull back a little bit so we can get a bit more of the audio signal in here. Compress that a bit more. So let's say this band's drive can be modulated by this envelope. So I'm going to click and drag and drop this here. So based on the threshold over here, when the signal crosses this threshold, this envelope will be triggered and it will modulate that drive parameter. Let's bring this down here. I'm actually going to bring this further down. And let's increase the modulation amount here. Now we can choose to listen to something else instead of the entire signal. Maybe you could just listen to band 2. So I have to bring the threshold down because band 2's signal is a bit lower. Let's unsolo and hear all this in context. By the way, the envelope follower also has similar options. So there's a normal input, sidechain input, and the signal from those individual bands that are active. Now we can choose to modulate modulators. So I'm going to add another LFO. And let's say I want this second LFO to modulate something on LFO1 here. So what I can do is expand LFO1 and then click here and drag and drop this on any parameter like the frequency. Let's make this LFO much slower. Now if we solo this band here, a lot of options we have here to change tonality. And of course, this secondary level modulation creates more interesting movement in the signal. Might be interesting to also modulate this frequency parameter here. So let's assign this second LFO to that frequency knob here. Let's unsolo and hear everything together. Some pretty wild effects we have created over here. So that is modulation in Saturn 2.